It is September the 2nd, and it is hot as all get out. We're going to cut fourth cut alfalfa grass mix down at Dad's tomorrow. I believe that's right, fourth cut on that field. I've got fifth cut on my new alfalfa stand. It's probably about 10 days away. It's been kind of dry, but I think it's still going to cut all right. Silage is just as well. As soon as I get this hay done on tomorrow and Tuesday, I'll start. I got to work on the chopper just a little bit. I had to go chop some silage for another guy. He had a little bit left, and it tore his chopper up. And I went over there and I broke a belt on the one of the gathering chains. So I got to change that. But it's September, and it's getting that time of year where as your corn comes off, if you're going to do any liming, when most guys do their liming, I just thought I might bring up a couple of things that you might bear in mind if you're about to put some on. A couple of little maybe things to think about. Everybody's wanting to get a little extra out of what they're doing right now with the way things are, and so I would advise take a long look at your soil test, what they're calling for. If they're calling for whatever they're calling for on tonnage, I'm not going to argue with that at all, because they did the lab work and I didn't. If your magnesium on that base saturation up on that where that's listed, if it's in the mid-teens, you've got a little you can afford to give away. I would challenge you, and this is especially going on corn ground, but hay ground as well, because either one is separated. Put you on about 100 pounds to the acre. It doesn't have to be 100. If you can spread less, then by all means try it. the buggies that we've used, about 100 pounds is as light as they'll set. But use some AMS. That sulfate of the ammonium sulfate, which is SO4, will bond with that magnesium, making MgSO4, which is Epsom salts, and those salts will leach. If we can move some of that magnesium out of the way, it's going to allow that calcium to move in a little faster, which, if we can break more of that down more efficiently, the carbonate of the CaCO3, which is your calcitic lime, that will work a little bit quicker, because if you're acidic, the hydrogen, two of those hydrogens picks up that odd oxygen, which makes water, which that's how you raise acidic soils. I would also bear in mind that will give you a little more performance. You can get too much calcium in your soils. 68 to about 75 is ideal. 80 is borderline high. Too much free calcium. I've got two fields that I'm right on that line of being a little high. You can either add a little mag and balance that back out. Sometimes running about a crop cycle. And it really is not that the calcium's bad. What happens is high calcium loads tend to tie up. Even though calcium is a mover of potassium, too much calcium, and that's my daughter's horse Casper. I was over here feeding, and my wife's horse Dakota. Too much calcium will bond up your potassium and your copper. And copper is that old forgotten micronutrient that nobody really ponders on much, but that gives you a lot of your stalk strength. So you'll see small brittle stalks sometimes where you have way too much free calcium. You can add some mag. Those two fields, I do it to most all of them, but those two fields in particular, I foliar feed with a mixture from Delta Ag. It's boron, zinc, sulfur, and copper. And the reason why I use foliar copper over granular copper is it calls for about a pound of granular copper, which most time is a sulfate when you get it. The problem with that is a pound of granular on an acre, as I told another guy, if you can spread a teaspoonful of peanut butter on a football field, you can put on granular copper. It's just too hard. There's no consistency. That's why I like foliars. And I can give you an example of why this can kind of happen. Ever since the last, say, about 07, 08, I've seen some ground that has come out of old CRP, and around here we've got a lot of high mag soil, which is a lot of heavy clays or red clays. This guy took out a piece of old broom sage ground and put it in grass. Well, he started liming. They called for quite a bit of lime. And he put on his potash, and our agronomist over here, we've got a pair. We've got a guy, he's my age, that he's moved up in the chain just a little bit and does some other jobs, and then the younger guy who's just out of college has sort of filled in his role selling seed, and he works at the store. But anyway, the guy was saying, you know, I'm putting on my K, but I'm just not getting good levels, and what's going on? So I was in there, and he said, come here and look at all this and see if you got an idea. So the first thing I looked at it was, and his mag was super high. He had plenty of calcium levels, and he did a 3-inch sample and a 6-inch sample. And he said, what would you do? I said, go put on some AMS. They spread 100 pounds AMS about June, and he resampled in the fall, and it moved enough mag to let that calcium in. One other thing I would vary, and this is mainly for the guys like me who are mostly all no-till. One of the things you might keep in mind, when your dealer in the fall, they're pretty big on it. They'll say, let's get your lime on. Oh yeah, let's get all your P and K spread. And that's a great idea. Down here we don't do that because we don't really forever freeze up. Our ground, it stays muddy, and you know, we put all our P and K on in the spring around here. Unless it's sowing wheat, we'll put a little on with wheat. But bear in mind, calcium ties up phosphorus in an alkaline situation. And you might say, well, my soil's not alkaline, my soil's acid. Well, it is down in the bottom. But if you come in and spread 2 tons of lime, if you put on 2 tons of lime and it's only sitting on top of 2 inches of soil, those 2 top inches of soil are now alkaline. And not alkaline because most time alkaline soils are wet soils. And I understand that, and then they're half saline, but that's a whole other discussion. The thing to bear in mind is when you lay all that free calcium out there, and then you lay all your phosphorus out there, it's like pulling saran wrap across the top of the field. Absorption really just can't work. There's 2 ways to do that. Your tillage guys, they're going to work it in. You can strip till, you can wait and put it on in the spring. Just say, this field over here, we limed it heavy and we're not going to work it, and let's wait and put our phosphorus on in the springtime. Or you can use a veil on it. I'm not just, running around plugging product. I don't try not to do that. But I've used that stuff for 14 years, maybe 15 years. And I wish we were one of the first 2 farms in the whole region that really kind of broke the product in here. Not necessarily trying to brag or nothing. I'm just saying we tried it first. You might say we trialed it, and then we did a little work with SFP very early on, getting some data, and me and there's a hay farmer up the road here. He was pretty instrumental in breaking some of the newer product lines, getting them started down in here. But just a little something to ponder. And now I will say one other thing. It will tie up phosphorus in most forms. Polyphosphates, which is your 1034Os and your 1846Os, are way more susceptible to that than your orthos and your organophosphates. Most of your organophosphates is your manures and whatnot else. That would be where you don't have as much tie-up issues. They will tie up, but they don't tie up near as bad as your polys. Your polys are, you can spread 100 pounds of DAP, and under the best situations, you're only going to get about 30-35 pounds of usage. And we're only putting on about, I'm only putting on about 38 units of DAP banded on corn with a veil treatment to make our crops on. Now I've got a good load of phosphorus in the soil. Don't misunderstand me. We've got a lot of phosphorus in the ground around here. Some of it's natural, a lot of it's just cow manure. We're blessed with anything. We got a lot of cow duty, but One thing to help you out on that is zinc. And there was some guys that tried. To hell, leave it up, old boy. You ain't got a whole lot longer. You'll be in my freezer, then we ain't going to have to worry about what you do. Zinc. I've had some guys that I started working with early on that they were trying to veil like I did, and they said, you know, I'm just not getting the performance. And I said, well, think of it this way. You had enough zinc when you were only getting a fourth of your phosphorus was working. You had enough zinc. But if we're going to move more phosphorus than we've ever moved, we're going to need more zinc than we ever needed. And so, I mean, I zinc striked the field. My dealer was out of granular zinc. And when I planted, and I had one field zinc striped, and I fell in there with my foliar pass at V4, and it dried it. You know, it took it right out. But oh, Lord have mercy, we already at 11:03. I'm going to cut this on off and quit rambling. But anyway, if this helped anybody, I hope it did. If you already knew it all, then I don't doubt it, because I'm sure there's a lot of people know a whole lot more than I do. But anyway, thanks for watching. Y'all have a wonderful evening, and we'll catch y'all later.